They say anything they got to do with King Von, Sly for Von, whatever, they say they're going to use that in court.
On February 9th, 2026, U.S. District Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald ruled on which of Lil Durk's rap lyrics can be used as evidence in his federal murder-for-hire trial. He allowed 4 lyric excerpts in, blocked 5, and deferred 4 more. The ruling means prosecutors can now present specific lines from Durk's songs to a jury to argue he had motive and intent to order the killing of rapper Quando Rondo in retaliation for King Von's death. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the night everything changed. The night that started it all. On November 6, 2020, King Von was shot and killed outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge in downtown Atlanta. He was 26 years old. The confrontation started as a fistfight between Von's group and the entourage of rival rapper Quando Rondo. It escalated into a shootout. 6 people were shot that night. Von took multiple gunshot wounds, including one to the head. He died at the hospital shortly after. Timothy Lul Tim Leaks, a 22-year-old associate of Quando Rondo from Savannah, Georgia, was arrested and charged with felony murder in connection to Von's death. Leaks himself was wounded in the shootout and treated at Grady Hospital. But in October 2024, the murder charge against Leaks was dismissed. 2 Atlanta police officers had also responded to the scene. They fired shots during the chaos and killed 2 members of Von's entourage. Authorities later confirmed that Von was not shot by police. King Von, real name Davon Daquan Bennett, was from O Block, the Parkway Gardens housing project on Chicago's South Side. He and Lil Durk were not biologically related, but they called each other family. Durk referred to Von as his twin and his baby bro. They grew up in overlapping neighborhoods. Von from O Block, Durk from nearby Englewood, and their bond stretched back to the late 2000s or early 2010s, long before either had a rap career. After Von got out of jail in December 2017, he had no plans to rap. In an old interview, Von said he originally intended to hang around Durk and rob people in his circle to make money, but Durk saw something else in him. He signed Von to his label, Only the Family, and helped him channel his street stories into music. Durk brought Von on interviews like The Breakfast Club before Von even had a major hit. He believed in him when others didn't. Under OTF, Von blew up fast. His debut project, Grandson, Volume 1, dropped in 2019. His album, Welcome to O Block, peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200 in 2020. They collaborated on tracks like Crazy Story 2.0, Like That, and All These N***s. Durk featured on Von's projects, and Von appeared on Durk's albums. Their music drew from shared street experiences. It was more than a business relationship. It was a brotherhood. The two were actually separated on the night Von died. In 2019, they had both been charged in an Atlanta shooting case involving a man named Alexander Witherspoon outside the Varsity restaurant. A judge had set bond conditions that kept them apart. That's why Durk wasn't with Von at the Monaco Hookah Lounge. Durk learned about Von's death through social media. He posted a tribute that read, "My twin gone. I love you, baby bro. D. Roy," alongside a photo. The hip-hop community mourned. But online, something else started. Fans began flooding Durk's comment sections, his posts, his social media pages, all with the same message, slide for Von. That pressure, according to federal prosecutors, is what set everything else in motion, because what the government alleges happened next is that Durk didn't just grieve. They say he placed a monetary bounty on Quando Rondo's head around the same day as Von's killing. And that bounty, prosecutors claim, eventually led to a shooting in Los Angeles 2 years later that killed the wrong person. This is the foundation of the entire federal case. And this is why the judge's ruling on lyrics matters so much, because the government isn't just using text messages and surveillance footage. They want to use Durk's own words, his bars, his interviews, his Instagram messages, to prove that he ordered a hit on Quando Rondo because of what happened to King Von. And as of February 2026, the judge said, some of those words can go in front of a jury. The shooting in Los Angeles and the federal case. The alleged bounty that prosecutors say Durk placed on Quando Rondo didn't result in an immediate attack. It took nearly 2 years for the plan to materialize into the incident that would become the centerpiece of this federal case. On August 18, 2022, federal prosecutors alleged that Durk and 5 OTF affiliates learned of Quando Rondo's location at a downtown Los Angeles hotel. Those 5 individuals were Kayvon London Grant, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Bryan Lindsay, and Asa Houston. According to the indictment, they flew from Chicago to LA on commercial flights, rented vehicles once they landed, and tracked Rondo to a gas station near the Beverly Center Mall. There, in broad daylight, they allegedly ambushed Quando Rondo. At least 18 rounds were fired from multiple firearms, including a machine gun. Rondo survived, but his cousin, Saviaya Lulpab Robinson, age 24, was killed in the crossfire. Surveillance cameras captured the entire shooting. Prosecutors say Durk funded the entire operation, the flights, the rental cars, the weapons, all of it as part of the ongoing retaliation for King Von's death. They also allege that Durk offered not just money, but lucrative music opportunities with OTF as incentives for those who would carry out the hit. In other words, the government is painting a picture where Durk used his label, his money, and his influence as the tools of a criminal conspiracy. For over 2 years after the shooting, no arrests were made in connection to the Quando Rondo ambush. Then, on October 23, 2024, the 5 OTF members were arrested in Chicago on charges including conspiracy to commit murder for hire involving death, and use of a machine gun in a violent crime. The very next day, October 24th, Durk himself was picked up in Broward County, Florida, by U.S. Marshals. According to reports, he was allegedly planning to flee to Italy via private jet at the time of his arrest. A superseding indictment followed in November 2024, adding more charges against Durk: 1 count of conspiracy, 1 count of using interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death, and 1 count of using, carrying, and discharging firearms, including a machine gun in furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death. He pleaded not guilty. He has been denied bail multiple times. He has been in federal custody without bond for over 15 months as of February 2026, including periods in solitary confinement after allegedly being caught with an Apple Watch in jail. The trial was supposed to start earlier, but has been delayed multiple times. Co-defendants requested more preparation time, and the sheer volume of evidence, over 30,000 pages, required additional review. The trial is now scheduled to begin on May 4th, 2026, in Los Angeles Federal Court. But this case isn't just about surveillance video, flight records, and credit card receipts. The prosecution has leaned heavily into something more controversial, using Durk's own music against him. And that brings us to the ruling that has the entire hip-hop world paying attention. If convicted, Durk faces life in prison. The death penalty has been ruled out, but a life sentence remains on the table. The prosecution also linked Durk to additional plots. They've alleged involvement in the 2022 fatal shooting of Stefan Mack outside the Youth Peace Center of Roseland in Chicago, though the government later withdrew its request to use that evidence at trial. They've also claimed Durk offered bounties for other killings, including one targeting a family member of a witness. This is the scope of what Durk is facing, and now the government wants the jury to hear his rap lyrics as part of the proof. The judge's ruling: what's in and what's out. On February 9th, 2026, Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald held a hearing in Los Angeles to address Durk's motion to exclude all lyrics and music videos from the trial. Durk's defense team, led by attorney Drew Findling, had argued that the lyrics are artistic expression, hyperbolic poetry, and that using them in court risks misleading jurors into treating fiction as literal confessions. The prosecution countered that certain lyrics are direct evidence of motive, intent, and Durk's role in the conspiracy. A 21-page ruling was formally issued on February 13th, 2026. The result was a mixed verdict. Prosecutors had sought to introduce excerpts from 12 to 13 songs. Here's what the judge decided. 4 lyric excerpts were allowed in. These were deemed to have clear probative value, meaning they help prove the charges, without being excessively prejudicial. The admitted lyrics include lines referencing the pressure to avenge King Von, such as references to fans telling Durk to slide for Von, and Durk's apparent responses in his music. One admitted excerpt from HA references dropping locations and sliding while acknowledging the feds are watching. Another excerpt references having a co-defendant with him, potentially tying him to the alleged conspiracy. In some cases, the judge edited out portions of admitted lyrics to limit potential bias against Durk.
And that's because Durk's team filed motions to have things excluded.
The defense had tried to keep all of this out of the courtroom, but the judge sided with the government on these 4.
So if the judge denies that request, that means the evidence will be included.
And included it will be.
And therefore can be used in the trial. Layman's terms, Denied means bad news for Durk.
5 lyric excerpts were blocked. The judge ruled these inadmissible because they described general violent behavior similar to the alleged crimes, but lacked specific ties to the 2022 shooting. For instance, one excluded lyric from Hanging with Wolves talked about hopping on flights with warrants. Prosecutors wanted to use it to show consciousness of guilt, suggesting Durk intended to flee, but the judge called it sheer propensity evidence. That means the lyric would only suggest Durk acted in line with a criminal character trait, not that he committed the specific crime charged. The judge also noted that there was no evidence on when many of these lyrics were written or recorded, making their connection to the 2022 incident weak. Most of the excluded lyrics came from Durk's co-defendant, DeAndre Wilson, also known as DD. His bars about sliding, grabbing Glocks, and dumping shots were all thrown out. 4 lyric excerpts are still undecided. The judge said he needs more information before ruling on these. All 4 are from Durk. One references not wanting peace with rivals, another mentions wanting the one I paid for, a third talks about being in California, and one more references buying $50,000 worth of guns. Prosecutors must explain their relevance at a follow-up hearing on February 23, 2026. On music videos, the judge ruled that full videos are generally barred. Only screenshots can be used to show relationships between individuals. However, one specific video, allegedly showing a reward tied to the bounty, could be admitted if prosecutors prove it's direct evidence of the conspiracy. Now, some social media posts and headlines have claimed that most of Durk's lyrics can be used, but the court documents show the opposite. It was a selective, mixed decision, not a blanket approval. 4 in, 5 out, 4 pending. That's the actual count, but even 4 is enough to worry about. Beyond the lyrics, the other evidence the judge allowed. The lyrics are the headline, but they're not the only evidence the judge let in. The ruling covered a wide range of material that prosecutors planned to present to the jury, and almost all of it went the government's way. First, the death of King Von itself. The judge is allowing witnesses to testify about what happened that night in Atlanta, and the surveillance video of King Von's death will be played at trial. This is the foundation of the prosecution's motive argument. They want the jury to see exactly what happened to Von, understand the emotional weight of it, and then hear the government's case that Durk ordered retaliation because of it.
First up is testimony and video surveillance surrounding the death of King Von.
That video will be shown in the courtroom. The jury will see it with their own eyes.
And the motion to exclude this evidence was denied, meaning the judge is going to allow witnesses to testify about,
and witnesses will back it up. Second, social media comments. The judge ruled that fan comments urging Durk to slide for Von are admissible. Why? Because in a podcast appearance, Durk was asked about those comments, and he responded by saying he doesn't see the comments anymore. The judge interpreted this as an acknowledgement that Durk was at the very least aware of the pressure being applied to him online. Prosecutors will now be allowed to show those comments to the jury and argue that they pressured Durk into acting. Third, podcast comments. These go hand in hand with the social media evidence. The judge is allowing in Durk's own statements from podcast appearances, likely including his interview with DJ Academics, where he discussed the public pressure to retaliate. Fourth, direct messages. An Instagram DM allegedly sent by Durk to a rival is now in play. The message reads, "I got them hunting you up, better have 3 ski masks on." The judge agreed with the government that this illustrates the leadership role Durk had over OTF. He specifically pointed to the phrase, "I got them hunting you," as evidence that Durk was the one in power, sending people after his rivals. Fifth, text messages. A text thread between Durk, DeAndre Wilson, and a third person was admitted. The government says this thread contains discussions about proper retaliation for King Von's death. In the thread, Durk allegedly says, "I'm finna pipe it up." His defense argued that pipe it up means he was going to speak up about the situation, but the government argued it meant something far more violent. The judge sided with the prosecution.
When you start using cool, yo, I'm gonna go pipe it up, we gonna go spin the block.
And the commentary around this point captures the problem for the defense perfectly.
They be telling the feds and everything about the code, the lingo, they explain to them what it means.
When drill culture has already decoded the slang for millions of listeners, it gets much harder to convince a jury that pipe it up was just a figure of speech. Sixth, a voice memo. In this recording, someone is being directed on how Durk's money should be spent, including wanting people to get sliders and stuff like that for sure. Durk's name isn't used in the memo. A person is referred to as Blood. The government says blood is Durk. Durk's team argued there's no proof of that. The judge allowed it in anyway, telling the defense they can make their argument at trial. 7th, the May 2021 shooting. Before the August 2022 ambush that killed Lil Pab, there was an earlier attempt on Quando Rondo's life in May 2021. The prosecution wanted to include surveillance footage and witness testimony about this shooting. Durk's team argued there's no evidence tying Durk to that crime, but the judge allowed it in because prosecutors have a cooperating witness who can testify about that incident. That cooperating witness is significant. The government didn't just rely on circumstantial evidence for this one. They have someone willing to take the stand and connect the dots. The only piece of evidence the government voluntarily pulled back on was the Stefan Mack murder from 2022 in Chicago. They withdrew their request to use it. The judge ruled that if they changed their mind later, they'd have to file a new motion. But for now, that's out. DJ Academics weighed in on the broader legal strategy at play here. He pointed out something that many observers missed: the prosecution's chess move with the lyrics.
You know what the prosecutors did? Durk filed a motion to dismiss saying, you guys use lyrics with a fan-made video.
And then they made a calculated response.
They went back in that week and got a new superseding indictment and removed the lyrics completely.
That move told the world something critical about this case.
What does that prove, lad? That actually proves we don't need the lyrics.
The lyrics, academics argued, are not the backbone of this case. They're supplementary. The government believes they can convict Durk without a single bar from his music. The lyrics are just added weight on top of an already heavy pile of evidence.
Yeah, the lyrics was just icing on the cake. The lyrics was just to sensationalize this.
And that might be the most sobering part of all of this. Even if every single lyric had been thrown out, the rest of the evidence, the texts, the DMs, the voice memos, the surveillance, the cooperating witnesses, would still be there. What this means for Durk and the bigger picture. So where does Lil Durk stand now? The trial is set for May 4th, 2026. He has been locked up without bail for over 15 months. His defense team, led by Drew Findling, the same attorney who has represented Big Meech, Cardi B, Boozy, Young Dolph, YFN Lucci, and NBA Youngboy, is preparing to fight every piece of evidence the government plans to bring forward. But the rulings so far have not gone in Durk's favor on the most critical points. The admitted lyrics allow prosecutors to weave Durk's own words into their narrative of motive and intent. They will stand in front of that jury and recite bars about sliding for Vaughn, about having people hunting rivals, about getting things done. And they will tell the jury, these aren't just songs, these are statements of fact from a man who ordered a murder. Durk's team will counter that rap is art, that lyrics are storytelling, exaggeration, and entertainment. They'll invoke the First Amendment. They'll argue that using hip-hop lyrics in court discriminates against black and brown artists by treating their work as criminal evidence while ignoring similar themes in other genres. It's an argument that has been made in courtrooms across the country, in Young Thug's RICO trial in Atlanta, in cases involving Bobby Shmurda, in dozens of prosecutions where prosecutors turn to the defendant's music as proof of guilt. But there's a crucial difference in this case that Academics highlighted in his breakdown of the federal system versus the state system. He discussed how federal proceedings are far more locked in than what people saw in the Young Thug trial in Georgia.
Me and Drew Findling talked about this. The nonsense you've seen on these stands with like Lil Woody.
He pointed out that the kind of witness recantations that happened in the YSL trial simply don't occur the same way in federal court.
Or Megan's friend that had one story one day, they get on the stand and suddenly forget and change their story.
In the feds, witnesses are locked into their statements through grand jury testimony and multiple interviews.
All that does not work that way in the feds. You tell your story, you're locked in, you get on the stand.
And if they flip, they face their own charges.
You say exactly what you said before.
You just don't see that in federal litigation.
That's a significant factor. In the Young Thug case in Fulton County, the prosecution's witnesses fell apart on the stand. Some changed their stories. Some couldn't remember key details. The trial dragged on for hundreds of days. That kind of chaos is far less likely in federal court. If witnesses are called, they are expected to repeat exactly what they said in prior interviews, or they face perjury and false statement charges. There's also the question of cooperating witnesses, and this is where the case gets especially dangerous for Durk. The government has at least one cooperating witness who can testify about the May 2021 shooting of Quando Rondo. There is also an unnamed shooter from the 2022 ambush who was not included in the indictment, which suggests he's cooperating. Academics laid out exactly why the government is so determined to keep Durk behind bars pending trial.
This is why another reason they don't want Durk get out no bond.
The concern is straightforward. If Durk knows who the cooperating witnesses are, and he likely does based on who wasn't charged, he has the resources and connections to interfere.
We don't know who these snitches are. Durk knows. definitely knows without even getting discovery.
That's one of the clearest explanations of why Durk has been repeatedly denied bond. The government doesn't just see him as a flight risk, they see him as a threat to their key witnesses. While all of this has been unfolding in court, Durk's career has been frozen. Before his arrest, he was at the peak of his powers. His album 7220 debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 in 2022, and he won a Grammy in 2024 for All My Life featuring J. Cole. While in custody, he released Deep Thoughts in March 2025, which debuted at #3 on the Billboard 200 with 64,000 first-week units. But without tours, interviews, or any real promotional push, the album's reach was limited. His Chicago Keys to the City honor has been rescinded. There are no announcements for future projects. Industry collaborators have reportedly distanced themselves. Robinson's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Durk in February 2025, adding civil liability on top of the criminal case. Durk's defense has also argued that the case is fatally compromised due to concealed death threats against the judge and prosecutor, which they claim could bias the proceedings. Whether that argument gains traction remains to be seen. The next hearing is February 23, 2026. The judge will rule on the remaining 4 lyrics and possibly on the severance motion, whether Durk should be tried separately from his co-defendants. Given how much evidence is now coming in that's specific to Durk, a separate trial seems increasingly likely. If he's convicted, Durk faces life in prison. If he's acquitted, the comeback narrative writes itself. But rebuilding trust in the industry could take years. For now, though, the judge has spoken. 4 of Lil Durk's lyric excerpts will be read in a federal courtroom in front of a jury. His Instagram DMs, his text messages, his voice memos, his podcast interviews, the surveillance video of King Von's death, and a cooperating witness are all on the table. And this is just the beginning. The trial hasn't even started yet. Love this video? Click on the cards on your screen for more.